I mean, even like we were taught to like whisper about our periods, like, oh, did you need a tampon? Like, it's all very whispery. It's all very like secretive. And I've been super great about that kind of stuff with her, like not whispering about it, answering the questions, being very like, this is...
Are you loud about it in like the grocery store?
I shout, like, and she's like, will you be quiet? We're in the, we're in the restaurant.
Hey, you got a pad? You got a pad?
She loves it. Loves it.
That's
Mother of the year.
The guidance.
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did... Milkless. Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids. But then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey. Hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max, coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take.
All right, Matt, we are back live via satellite. We got a great episode today. We got a guest. We got Amanda Brinkman. She's a mutual friend of both of ours, probably more yours, colleague, friend.
Oh, way more
bestie.
Mine.
Okay.
Get out of here. Come on.
Yeah, but listen.
But no, you're friends too. Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about perimenopause, what it is, and diving deep into it. Matt, how do you want to get into this? Let's intro Amanda, and then I got some studies to round us out as we're diving in.
Yeah, Amanda, we're here to teach you about perimenopause today.
The benevolence is staggering. Yeah. Thank you.
So let me just start by saying
thank you.
You're welcome. Amanda and I have worked together for years and years. She created a show that I wrote and directed that was on Hulu. She also hosted the show. So we spent a ton of time on the road. Amanda,
what is that show called, Matt?
This show is called The Small Business Revolution. Nice little show. 6 seasons. It's dope. But yeah, we spent a lot of time on the road in the trenches. Amanda's now like a sought after public speaker, speaking about purpose. You just released a masterclass. Are you calling it a masterclass?
Yeah, it's like we're a little like flexible with the language. It's an online course, but I feel like masterclass is more how people think about them now. But yes, it's in that masterclass vibe. Like
that's
you can watch the videos
you.
And learn.
Yeah, as a masterclass person.
I like where this is headed. This is very affirmation based already.
Absolutely. So we kind of, whenever we have guests, we kind of say, hey, what do you want to talk about? And kind of sheepishly, because you're like, I don't know if I really want to talk about this, but here's what's going on. You are, much, much older than I am. So it's always nice when you... Amanda's like...
Wait, can I say that?
Yeah, please.
Screw you, dude.
No, Amanda's a couple of years older than I am. And so it's always not like, this is a little bit of what's coming for all the dads/husbands that listen to the show. This is what's coming for your wife. Also, I think, Maxie, our listeners have always been at least half moms, which... Yep. On the one hand, it's like, come on, dads. But on the other hand, it's like, nice. There's girls watching. But so this is kind of like a what to expect for Max and I. And Max, I know you've also done some research on some of the science of this stuff too. So that should be cool because you can mansplain it to us. So AB, short for Amanda Brinkman.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you. Where do you want to start with this? Because we want your personal experience.
Well, okay. Well, first of all, I do feel like just for the sake of your audience's, perception of me. I didn't say, I want to come on and talk about perimenopause. You said one of the most important things we do on Milkless is we're very honest about the things we are struggling with in real life. Like, what are the things we're thinking about and are real factors in our real life, and being honest and transparent about it. And then that's when I sheepishly said, like, well, I mean, the one thing I'm really struggling with, I don't know, is like a podcast episode. But I do think that, I mean, I feel like we're hearing a lot more about perimenopause and certainly menopause now. And I am super impressed because that is like a one generation change. Like, our parents, especially our mothers, did not, for sure our fathers, were not talking about menopause. It was called the change. It was it wasn't even acknowledged. And as someone who is going through perimenopause, which is the stage that goes right before menopause, it's like a real thing. It affects you physically, mentally, emotionally. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And the fact that our mothers had to go through that and just thinking there was something maybe wrong with them or they shouldn't talk about it, it's just unnecessary, and it makes me feel bad. So I am really impressed with us as a society that we are already making that kind of a shift just within one generation. That's fantastic. However, like, I still, until I started talking about perimenopause around my phone enough so that it could serve me all the great social media bits.
Just whisper into
until I started
Zuckerberg's
doing
ear.
that. I too did not know that some of these things I was experiencing were part of perimenopause. So I'm sure I am not here to be a scientist or a doctor, though I know Max is quite good at research, so he'll probably round up some of this with real facts. But this is my lived experience.
Maxie, she almost said your catchphrase. Max's catchphrase around research.
We like to get us make sure we're rounded out as we're diving in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
You don't want to
really
dive
good.
in pokey or pointy. You got to go and get rounded
Too big
out.
of a splash.
Yeah, there you go.
That's just good cannonball technology right there. Okay, so I think that if I would have known all of the things that are part of perimenopause when I was experiencing them, I wouldn't have been quite so caught off guard and thinking everything was kind of wrong with me. Now, perimenopause starts for women as early as, it can be as early as 35, but it's usually kind of around your 40s, mid-40s. I'm 45, much older than you two, by years and years. Years. But, so I'm a couple years into it, but there are things that are on the periphery that you just think there's something wrong with you. The other thing that happens around kind of 45 is that you go through kind of this midlife, what we used to call crisis. I am adopting the language that it's a midlife chrysalis. Like it's an opportunity to be more intentional and to make better decisions and to kind of make new decisions about who you're going to be, both in your career and in your life. But all these things are happening at the same time. I, for myself, I went from this corporate executive kind of career track into becoming an entrepreneur and pursuing speaking full time. So all these things were happening for me at the same time. So some of these things that were actually perimenopausal, I was blaming on a huge career shift and kind of like this I didn't know. And so the fact that those two things happen at the same time is a little uncertain. So I just want to tell your listeners, both male and female, like when some of these things start happening, there is nothing wrong with your wife. There's nothing wrong with you. Like this is a physiological shift that they say is even bigger of an effect than like pregnancy or anything else that's happened to your body before then.
Wow.
Yeah,
Far out.
Totally. And so to continue to make us a little bit rounder as we're going in.
I don't ever want to be rounder. That's on my list. Let's keep going. Okay.
Yeah. So to continue to round it. So actually, you mentioned around 40. A lot of the data is suggesting that it can happen even as early as 30 to 35. 55% of women 30 to 35 reported moderate to severe perimenopausal symptoms. Before we get into more of the numbers, let's talk about what those symptoms might be. So this is, perimenopause, as you
Maxie,
said.
you read a symptom,
Should I play a game where I say check?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I just wanted an opportunity to say vaginal dryness on air.
God damn it.
Kidding. No, so listen.
No check.
You didn't have that one?
What am I supposed to say to that one?
Yeah. You don't have to respond to all these. Maybe this was a bad idea.
Okay. But so
All right.
there's
no problems here. Go on.
just to kind of, continue to round us out. It's like, for the avoidance of doubt, this is the transitional period before, full menopause or infertility. So the woman's body undergoes a lot of changes, a lot of hormone fluctuations. That can, you can have some menstrual changes. You can have, psychological issues. Obviously, full menopause, you get into the things that everyone's kind of maybe heard of, if you're even for the uninitiated, like hot flashes, night sweats, things like that. But you can have sleep disturbances, vaginal dryness, mood changes, just feeling kind of off, which is like what you had said, Amanda. It's also kind of strange because it's kind of coinciding with like some of the hardest times of your life and raising young kids. But to go back to the numbers, so we said 55% reported moderate to severe perimenopausal symptoms from age 30 to 35. Age 36 to 40, 64% reported this. And this is a study which surveyed 4,432 women age 30 and above. Here's the kicker, though. Only 8% of women aged 36 to 40 sought medical consultation or talked to a physician about it. Not saying that that's the answer, but this seems like one of those things that kind of, one, goes like undiagnosed even among friends, but definitely undiagnosed or not talked to about it. Not saying that it is necessarily pathological, like where we need to go to a doctor, but...
You know what this makes me think of? Sorry to interrupt, but so one time I was gifted a weed brownie and I left it in my fridge for a long time. Like I stashed it away in like a far nook of my fridge. And then a long time later, I came home this was like I was in my 20s. I wasn't making awesome decisions all the time. And so I came home and I was like, oh, there's a brownie in my fridge, which I no longer remembered was a weed brownie. And so I just ate it. And like an hour later, I was like, I think I'm dying. And it was because I didn't know I'd eaten the weed brownie. Like I would have been having a good time if I knew what was happening. But the fact that I was totally unaware of what actually was going on, I was like, I feel my face a lot right now. And that's like, doesn't usually happen to me. So anyways, I think like, but it's like
I
kind
see.
of knowing what's going on could keep you from feeling crazy or feeling like there's something wrong with me or like I'm losing control of my life. Yeah.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think that is my message. Like if I would have just known some of these things were completely natural. I mean, what's actually happening scientifically is that all this estrogen is like leaving your body. And they used to believe that estrogen was just like, it was just a term we talked about in relation to like our menstrual cycle and like having babies. But it is important in all of these other factors, brain function, cognitive or metabolism. Like it affects every part of a woman's body, and your body is like shedding it because it doesn't really need it for the functional purpose of making babies anymore. And so it is getting rid of it, but that departure is what is creating, in the simplest of terms, that's what is creating all these symptoms. So you're right, like Max, you mentioned hot flashes. That's usually the only thing we ever associated with perimenopause or menopause. We didn't even have a term for perimenopause until, I mean, we did, but it was not, kind of mainstream. And it was just about the hot flashes. And so now it's like, I'm going to take some of the symptoms you listed, and it's like crazy versions of that. Like I used to be able to, I mean, like, let's even talk about alcohol consumption. Like I can have some nights where I have like 2 beers and I'm like, I wake up the next day and I'm like, it's like I've gone on a rager. It's like, what in the world? Like I can handle 2 beers. This is crazy. Sleep disturbances, you feel weird the next day. And that's a symptom of this. You have a different kind of alcohol tolerance. Your sleep hygiene is super important, like how regular your sleep is and the things you do to make sure sleep. So sleep disturbances is really a thing. Brain fog is like the real deal. And again, like for me, this was coinciding again with this big career transition. So all of a sudden I'd have these moments. Like I used to, when I was younger, I used to be able to be telling a story and then I'd maybe like lose my train of thought a little bit or something. But I could keep saying words that made some sense. And by the time it really mattered, the train would snap back on the tracks. And I wouldn't have to acknowledge that I had lost my train of thought. Now it's like, forget it. Like I'm going to have to tell you, like what was I talking about? Like, so if you hear your wife saying like, what was I talking about? Like she's not losing her marbles. She's like, literally there is a physiological reason because estrogen affects that part of your brain that has things like recall and memory, and that's why you're starting to forget names. It'll all come back, and it is not as if your intelligence has changed, but those kind of recall skills are affected by the fluctuation of the estrogen leaving your body. So if your wife is doing that, or if you're doing that as female listeners, like you're not losing your mojo. You haven't you're still super smart and incredibly impressive, but like that was happening is very natural to you.
Yeah.
I could keep going.
This episode is brought to you by the Milkless Patreon. If you want to keep listening, it's only going to cost $79.99 per month. We're going entirely offline, so you can no longer listen unless you pay $79.99 per month. Just kidding, it's fucking free. We're actually losing money on the episodes, but we love doing it for you. All we want is for you to tell a friend. Think about that one friend who listens to podcasts. They told you about serial podcasts. They told you about, and it's like, tell them about one.
Yeah.
And it's Milkless.
Just return the favor. The $79.99 does get you feet pics from Max. So if you're into that. Well, and you should. There's a couple of interesting things about that. One is, and we kind of touched on it, but it is hard. I remember feeling this when COVID happened. It's like I also had young kids. My business was also changing a lot. COVID happened. And I turned 40 shortly after that. And it was like, I don't know what is what. Like, I don't, and I even after COVID, and I'm not trying to horn in on your brain fog because mine was not hormonal, but that experience of not being able to get back on the tracks, I started having for the first time. And I was like, this is some weird thing of being shut up in my house. And I'm like, not as good at talking to people as I used to. But so it's like hard to parse. Like there's always too many variables in life to figure out like, okay, this is exactly this and this is exactly this. But just kind of knowing it's in the mix is still really valuable.
All right, you want to hear some more bad stuff?
Yeah, give it to me.
It's not bad, but if you know. Okay, well, here, this is an example. Right here, I have, this is not a product endorsement, so I'll do it really fast. But like,
No,
protein,
show it to us. Come on.
Protein. Well, I like these because they're fast. You can go, I put it in the freezer so it can get nice and icy.
It's like,
anyway.
like Ensure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Max. Okay, so, I mean, it's not on like it, but that's what you feel like. But anyway, like eating protein becomes like a part-time job. And here's why. Like one of the other things that starts happening is you start to lose muscle mass, which is a big risk for women because it also affects our bone strength, like osteoporosis and some of these things start to happen when you're starting to lose muscle mass. And so protein is really, really important. Creatine is important. All of these supplements are really important, but like it can be really hard to like eat that much protein. So you have to start like drinking it in shakes and all these other things, but it's like a factor. It's something you have to start thinking about. And so, yeah, so protein consumption becomes a part-time job and your body is just like changing, like all your old tricks, like around like weight management don't work. So especially for your female listeners, they will know what I'm talking about. We have our tricks. Like when we needed to fit into that certain dress for the gala this weekend, we'd do like one of three things, like don't eat bread for a week or like, I don't know, skip breakfast for a week. We had these little tricks we could do and we could be like 5 pounds like that. No problem. Now, like not only do none of those tricks work, it's like a runaway train you can't seem to get your hands around. And I think for all genders, but I think especially for women, that really affects your psyche and your like sense of like, you know, how sexy you feel, how good you feel. And that's a real fucker. That's bad. It's bad. That's probably the most emotionally, where it's a physiological thing you can't help, but it affects kind of how you feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that's got to be so hard. And especially like you're doing on this episode is great because awareness around this perimenopause, I'd heard of it. I didn't know what it was until you brought the topic to the Milkless desk because here's why it's important to me. It's not just like it's the period right before, it's when you're on deck to menopause. It's more than that. In some of this research, well, let me just throw a couple more studies to round us, or a couple more data points. So women aged 30 to 35, 25% got diagnosed by their healthcare provider that they were perimenopausal. Age 36 to 40, 40% of women aged 36 to 40. And so what does that mean, right? Well, if we just go into the actual numbers, what's happening is the estrogen levels are fluctuating wildly. So in perimenopause, it can fluctuate from down to true menopausal levels where they're below 30 or 10 picograms per milliliter. So it's like you're fully menopausal maybe for a day. And then the next day, you're an 18-year-old and you have full reproductive and think about it, like hormones are very, very important for how we feel. So that's just such a cruel trick that like you don't even think like menopause isn't for another 10 years. I'm 38.
I do feel like there's this like...
So then you're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get this going? Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel like there's this like very common trope where men are looking at women like, why are you so fucking complicated? And women are looking at men like, why don't you get it? Why are you so thick? And I wonder how much of that is just like hormonally, like we're like, I mean, it changes over time and testosterone, et cetera. But like, we do not go on this ride that women go on, like, for their whole lives. It's like, you know, there's something or another that's changing that's like pretty profoundly impacting you. I mean, they only recently they are still behind doing broad scale medical research on women. They used to just do it on men because all these male doctors would feel like they're all over the place. We have no control group. Like their hormones are literally too complicated for us to do this study on women. So they would just do it on men. It was super fucked.
Well, if you start going down kind of the perimenopausal like research, it's not a rabbit hole because it's not very deep because that's part of the problem. But you will find quite early that there just there's not been a lot of research around it at all, and especially how it relates to brain health and things like Alzheimer's and all these other things. But also like even in like OBGYN like schooling. So like they only spend like a day on menopause. I mean, it's crazy. Like so OBG, like doctors who are in women's health will talk about how they just didn't even have training. So it's kind of up to them to care about it. And then the latest wave around this from a medical perspective is that why are we considering this an OBGYN specialty at all? Like, because, I mean, or exclusively, I should say, because it is not just a Yahoo issue. It is like a whole body experience, and it's women's health. Like it's a much bigger picture. So anyway, there is a lot of I think there's a lot of outrage around the lack of it. And I think that is well-founded outrage, but I think we are in this period where we're hearing about it more. Awareness and just knowing about it is going to be helpful for people. And then, so that's why Max, in some of your research, that's why the percentages are so low around women who have been seeking medical help for it, because there's even stories about people who will go into their doctor and talk about it, and they'll not quite be, not quite get to the gaslighting point, but they'll come and be like, "You're fine, like it's fine." So anyway, there's a movement.
You're experiencing
here.
hysteria. Like this is classic
Calm down,
hysteria.
woman. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's the other thing. All right, you talked about the roller coaster. Like you have this 0 to 60 rage button. It's wild. I can just be tootling around I'll be at this is me with my shopping cart. I do curbside. I don't even know why I'm saying this. But anyway, all right, so I'm walking through the grocery store, let's say, for the spirit of illustration. And someone will just cut me off or whatever, and it's I want to punch him in the face, out of nowhere. I'm fine. But all of a sudden, you have this
you never had
rage,
that inclination before.
Rah! Yes. And so also, if you're experiencing that, or if your wife is, she's suddenly these little things that never bothered you bug you, and you go from a place of total zen to out of nowhere rage animal. It's just, and it takes you off guard, because you're why did I just yell at my kid like that? Don't even remember being that annoyed with what they were doing, but suddenly, it's like the Family Guy. Bit about Lois.
Lois. So what I'm hearing from you is the next time my wife is really mad at me, just be like, "Baby, it's just your hormones. It's perimenopause. It's not me."
I think that would work.
If you pat her on the head a little too, I think that will probably it'll just it's probably just a surefire approach there. Yep, marital advice.
So nailing it. So. Max, you mentioned there's pretty low percentage of women who are actually, even talking to their, whether it's their primary care doctor or whoever about this. What are things that you can actually proactively do? Other than drinking so much protein, you're ready to burst out of a really cool looking, that container just,
yeah.
Look at that. It's the color scheme is are we food or are we medicine?
It's a cardboard Ensure container.
We'll never actually know.
When you drink it, it makes you look younger.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah, this is what the kids...
That's what I was going for. Thank you.
So are there things other than you're welcome. Again, you're welcome. Are there things other than protein that what are the things that you can kind of proactively do?
Well, so let's just talk about just HRT, or hormone replacement therapy, just really briefly. In the US, less than 10% of women over 50 currently use HRT. And this is, long story short, it's like a supplement of estrogen to kind of backfill some of that. Now, it peaked in the 90s. In 2002, there was a Women's Health Initiative study that said that, there was a 26% increase in breast cancer, which was debunked. It is no. And so
it's the whole reason my generation is not seeking it. Keep going.
Again, now what we like to caveat everything with is, to the listener, why the fuck are you getting your medical advice from a podcast? God,
idiots. We're idiots.
God, we don't know what we're talking about.
We don't know fucking anything.
We
This
don't
is just from
know.
the internet.
Anyway,
no.
with that
It's
said,
okay, listeners.
we're not doctors. We're not doctors.
I play one on TV.
Please do your own research. God damn it, do your own research.
Read a book.
Do your own research. Anyway.
No, but it's this. You're bringing up this is a hot topic.
With that caveat,
great, nice.
Is that short-term HRT is what, the current guidance, if you are going to do it with the consultation of a physician, is short-term use, typically to manage hot flashes, night sweats, deep sleep issues, intense irritability. Now, there might be a time where, you have perimenopause and, knowledge is power. And maybe just knowing that, hey, why am I kind of not feeling so great? Maybe that can get you through it. If a lot of times HRT is used when you are in like full blown menopause, and then it almost like supplements that estrogen that has fallen off a cliff, and then you slowly taper off of it. But some people use it during perimenopause to help handle those crazy, cycles. But again, do your own research, because it actually showed that for estrogen only HRT, there was a reduction in breast cancer. So, do your own research on that.
AB, it sounds like this is something that you've come across and thought about.
Yeah, but I missed my cue earlier. Like throughout that, Max was like saying something, and he's like this crazy psycho. I was like, "Who are you calling crazy?" Like, I missed it though. I missed it, but
Yeah.
See, this is what I'm talking about. 0 to 60 rage cycles. Anyway, yes, this is a hot topic right now because HRT can actually be quite helpful, but there's a whole there's like a lot of theories about why it was like such a big study and it was really promoted. I'm not here to talk about whether or not that was right or wrong, but I do think it's really important that we relook at it, because like any sort of medical intervention, if that can at least lessen some of these symptoms, because to your original question, like what can someone do? Right now, it's a lot of patchwork. Like I have sought medical attention or advice about this, and it is even those who are regarded as experts in this, they have to give you like, okay, another thing that happens is your hair starts to. There's all this stuff. They're like, for the hair loss, you take this supplement. For the weight management, do these things. For the sleep disorder, you could try that. Like there is literally there are solutions, but they're all Band-Aids, and they're for each of them individually. And so right now I'm taking, no joke, like 10 different like supplements or powders or whatever, and they're all for something different. No one has a through line on like, do those even work together, or is one canceling the other out? So we're kind of in the wild, wild west of it right now, where there's no one size fits all and there's no one solution, but you can address the symptoms. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. Yeah. By we, I mean the collective female population of the world, and the medical field. But it's that part's a little frustrating, is that you really, to your point, you do have to be an advocate for yourself, because like you have to be seeking out these solutions. And also, for each of them.
Even if there is like a great solution, it might be a great solution for somebody. It might not be a great one for another one, another person. Another kind of just to make sure we're completely round, just to make sure that there was in that study combined estrogen and progestin over 5 years of use did see a slight increase of breast cancer. So do your own fucking research. God damn it. But the risk declined after stopping the therapy. So just for the avoidance of doubt, like their estrogen only HRT did have a decreased risk, slightly reduced risk. So anyway, but yeah, this is the type of thing. It's like it is the Wild West. It seems like, Amanda, and like so you got to kind of work with your healthcare community, but also kind of like. Since it's kind of new, it's not like you can just show up at the doctor and just be like, "Hey, fix me." Because they might... And
you have to kind of like order which symptoms are bugging you the most, to be quite honest. Like you kind of have to like figure out like which ones are bugging me like are affecting my quality of life or experience, and which ones do I put in the category of like, well, at least I know that that's why, and just I guess awareness will make me feel better that those things are happening, but I'm not going to... I got to put a pin in that for now and address these. Because the other, you guys aren't going to like this one, but like sexual drive like goes like, bleh, like... Talk about all the progesterone, estrogen, and then testosterone. Yeah. Like we lose. So also, if you, as a female listener, are feeling like just not as into it, or if your wife is presenting that way, it is physiologically happening to us, where we're just not. I mean, it makes sense medically, doesn't it? Like scientifically, if we're losing the thing that makes us want to, procreate, that also then our desire to do the thing that procreate. I mean, it all makes medical sense, but it's a real bummer at home. So you have to either be just the awareness of that can I think help alleviate any sort of like emotional experience of that for either of you, if you know that that's why. And then that is probably the fastest medical intervention. There's different things you can do and take to like bring that back up. But anyway, that's another one that I think like a generation ago, people must have just been like, oh, she's just not into me anymore. And women must have been like, I guess I used to be a sexual being and now I just don't care anymore. I mean, that's also makes you feel bad. Like, ugh.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's interesting. You know, we've talked a lot about like how knowing some of this stuff will help. And I think, you know, a theme that kind of keeps coming back around, Max started meditating and then I committed to meditating, and then we did an episode and I hadn't done it yet. And Max publicly shamed me into meditating. And so now I do it. One of the conversations that came up in that discussion and others is this idea of kind of being an observer of your own emotional states that you kind of have. And just having that, like, it doesn't mean you won't still have the rage in the grocery store.
But instead of being in the crashing waves, you're behind them, and you can choose to punch that person in the shopping line if you want.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel, the fist is
Could help with muscle mass. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All pluses, minuses.
No, it is just watching and then being able to name it. And especially for relationships, both parental and marital, like, or partnerships or anything, just to be able to like give it a name where it's like, it's not us or our chemistry or what's happening here. It's this other thing. And it doesn't mean that we don't still need to solve that or we don't want that to get better, but it just takes some of the, I think that's a great analogy to tie to what meditation truly is. We're observing this process versus it happening.
Just the fact that it's being talked about, I think, is really important. It's something that, you know, Matt and I said on a very early episode, was like, almost everything kind of gets solved if you have good lines of communication with your partner. And if it's just like, one, talking about perimenopause, one, establishing between the two of you that it is a real thing, whereas there's a good chance that 90% of men in the country do not even know. It's like, what, periwinkle? Isn't that light blue? You know, like, no idea. Knowing about it is interesting. And then you can kind of make plans together. Like, for example, we, like, my wife and I are not like we were when we met when we were 18 and 19. Literally like rabbits. And now it's like, we kind of do it like, hey, you know, it's been however long that, you know, our time period is. And it's like, oh, you
quarterly.
know what? No, it's I don't want to divulge, but it's a clip we're happy with, and it's like, you know, we should do that. And it's not like, oh, because before we used to kind of like let the moment hit us, and then it just happened. Now it's a little bit like brushing our teeth. It's like, hey, you know, it's Saturday. You want to do that tonight in like 6 hours? It's like we schedule it. It's like, all right, cool, and then we make this joke like, still remember how to do this? But the minute it gets going, you know, it's amazing. And but that's like a running joke we have. It's like, all right, ready to do it? Okay. Like the impetus is not the same as it was when we were kids.
Of course. Yeah.
You know? And
well, and
again, also you felt like sexy as hell when you were a kid though too. Like there's all these, so it's like there's an actual physiological lack of drive. So that's a for sure thing. But then also you mentioned like vaginal dryness, sex becomes uncomfortable, but there are for sure products to help with that. Yeah. But if you don't know that, then you think you're not turned on. Like, so again, that's a huge just awareness thing and a real simple product solution. And then the third though is this weight thing though too. Like if you don't, like a lot of my girlfriends will talk about like how you like almost feel whatever around this person that is like your person. Like, and that you have to feel, for women especially, like we have to feel sexy to want to be sexy. Like we have to like be feeling that. So all these things are working against it. And so I think you're absolutely right. As long as you're just talking about it as a couple and talking about it as this thing that we're both experiencing versus like, what's wrong with you and why don't you like me right now?
Yeah. Same team.
That's
huge.
Team. That's a
huge
huge
as opposed to like
shift.
Instead of it being like, you don't like me anymore? What am I? Wait, you don't want this anymore, babe? As opposed to like
this.
Let me round this out so we can dive in.
Oh, I'm round, baby. I'm like a friggin' beach ball.
Gross. Maybe, Max, I may have a few ideas about why it's not happening.
I think maybe, yeah.
Have a beach ball, and to find it, you gotta like find the thing you blow up the beach ball with. You gotta like squeeze it, and a little pencil eraser pops out.
Is this what all the episodes are like? This is wild.
Yeah, this is pretty par for the course. Yeah.
All right.
I do want to talk about. Well, I think there's two more things I want to talk about, because one thing I remember you mentioned is like sometimes this is happening while your kids, the age lines up, so your kids are also maybe prepubescent or entering their adolescent years, so it's just like the whole house is kind of probably wild. So let's maybe talk about that first, and then remind me of the second thing, because I think it's maybe kind of a good thing to close on.
Okay. If my train can be back on the tracks.
Yeah,
sometime.
right.
No,
well, our powers combined, we'll get there.
Oh, well, we have a daughter who's in middle school, and she's lovely. She's amazing. I mean, I feel like we have dodged whatever. Normally when I tell someone I have a teenage or preteen daughter, they almost offer their condolences. Like, here you go. I'm so sorry to hear it. But she's great. We're tight. However, that does not mean like she isn't for sure like this. I mean, she's in middle school. Like for sure, hormones are like running through her body.
She's
so
a peri teenager.
And so I'm sure there are times where my husband is just eyes wide open, like watching it go down. Because I mean, how cruel is that timing that I'm going through this huge hormonal shift that's totally natural, and she's going through this huge hormonal shift that's totally natural, but they're happening at the same time. And then you've maybe heard your wives talk about this, but like with our college roommates or anything, like your cycles actually start to like sync up, like when you're around other women. Like it's a kind of a cool physiological thing. Like it's kind of a cool, I don't know.
Yeah.
Science is cool. But So you just have this, like, it's just all coming together at the same time. And I think that that's hard, because then you also, at this stage of parenting, are starting to wonder, they naturally are pulling away, which is great, and it's good. But you start to wonder, like, oh, was that it? We had a great relationship, but now this is going to be the future of our existence together, and we're just going to be the mom and daughter that fight. Like, so again, add it onto the pile of things you're already feeling bad about as a mom. And so I just think the timing is a little unfortunate. So I mean, all kids are going through hormone swings at that age, but especially young girls. And so I just think the timing is just, again, I think if we're just aware of this, then we can name it that. Like, we're both in this roller coaster right now, and we need to stop talking in this moment and walk away.
So it sounds like you've had those conversations with your daughter about like, here's some of what's going on with me now. Like, because I'm always, I mean, like with young kids, there's some push and pull, like how much you really let them into your internal life. You never want to scare them or make them feel like your emotional state depends on them. But Max and I have talked a lot about, even in very small cases, like when you have a shitty day at work, just like, I try to tell my kids first thing when I walk through the door, like, there is something going on with me that has nothing to do with you, but as we interact, it's going to have something to do with you. So have you really made a point to do that with your daughter?
Yes. More so recently, though. Because I think, again, I still have this hangover, like, kind of perception of, like, I mean, even, like, we were taught to, like, whisper about our periods. Like, oh, did you need a tampon? Like, it's all very whispery. It's all very, like, secretive. And I've been super great about that kind of stuff with her, like, not whispering about it, answering the questions, being very, like, this is...
Are you loud about it in, like, the grocery store?
I shout, like, and she's like, will you be quiet? We're in the, we're in the restaurant.
Hey, you got a pad? You got a pad?
She loves it. Loves it.
That's
of
the guidance. Don't be quiet. Be loud about it.
So my third piece of advice for your listeners is to definitely shout about, feminine napkins. Okay. No.
May's a heavy one. May's a heavy one.
God,
okay, sorry. Continue.
Stop it, Max.
Continue. Sorry.
Too over the line.
Sorry.
To that point, though, can I tell just a short little story?
Yeah.
It's like this little... Okay. All right.
Sure.
So the other day, she and I were just like in this place where we were both like, and it was not going well. And I acknowledged her. I said, listen, I'm going through some stuff. You're going through some stuff. I didn't call it stuff, because that's, again, sounds like this thing. I said, like, we have these hormone swings. I said, I think our goal, though, is the risk of that happening, though, is even if we name it, when you're both really fired up, you can say stuff that's going to last. Like the older your kids get, I mean, as parents, we felt guilt the whole way along, right? Like afterwards, like, why did I get so mad? Why did I say that thing? Now imagine that they're like getting older where they're going to remember more conversations and you don't know which ones are going into the core memory bank, and they are making better points. They're like little mini adults that are rational to some degree. And so I said to her, I said, listen, I think this is going to happen to us again. We're two people who live in the same house. That is a recipe for disagreeing. We have varying opinions on things like what a bedroom floor should look like, for example, or where laundry should go. So we're going to disagree on that. But I think our goal is to like escape these conversations without any sort of lasting. Let's avoid words like never or always. Let's just make sure whatever we're talking about stays in this discussion and is not a character assassination, because we really, and I go on and I'm like, okay, I'm like really patting myself on the back. I'm like, this is some great parenting. And I said, does that make sense? And she's like pauses. She just looks up and she's like, what? I'm like, oh, that's like that was some of my best material. Like that was like they could write a book about the parenting genius that I just laid on you. But then she gave me just enough of a little smirk where it was like, oh no, she was listening.
You were listening.
But this is what I'm talking about. This is where you boys are headed. Like your kids start to they're a little snarky, which I think you will both appreciate about your children. But we do talk about it. But I think that's the biggest thing is like, but you could still do real damage in those moments, even if same thing with your partners. Just acknowledgement of it and it being this team, we're both focused on it, is a huge step. It's a big part of it. But there could still be hurtful things said in those moments. Sure. And so just being super mindful of that. I mean, as parents, we try to be more mindful of it, but remind our kids of that too, So.
Yeah. So, all right. So the last thing that I want to talk about, and I don't know, maybe like we might decide to cut this whole thing because we've got it's been a great discussion already. But as you were listing some of these symptoms, because this could be a whole nother conversation, but I was thinking about like, okay, you're losing some muscle mass. You're having some moments where your brain feels like it doesn't work quite as well as it used to. Your hair is thinning. It's harder to keep up. Like all of these sound like concentrated, accelerated versions of like, you're getting older. So like because like, like hair loss, brain fog, all that stuff is like, when you get like old, that's like stuff everybody's really dealing with. So do you feel, I mean, everybody in their 40s, I think, unless you're really running from it, starts to kind of confront the fact that like, hey, like all of our bodies are aging here. Has this experience around perimenopause, do you think it's really forced that? Is that something that was already happening anyways? How do you think about like, on the one hand, trying to ameliorate some of the more unpleasant symptoms, but also like just being okay with the fact that like we're all aging here? Does that make sense?
It does. I think that there is like this interesting cycle between like, are you blaming the thing? Are you naming the thing that becomes then the reason for the thing? Like you can't, like, can you hang everything on perimenopause, or to your point, is it also aging? I think what is the real bummer about it is, again, it's happening at the time where you're also questioning like your purpose in life, and you're kind of like, you're having this midlife like assessment. And so all of those aging things, or things that we could also associate, I suppose, with aging, are happening at an accelerated rate. Like it feels overnight. It feels like it hits you like a Mack truck, where like it's just all of a sudden you can't sleep. All of a sudden you feel like, and so it just feels a little like, what's happening to me? And then especially again at a time when you're wondering about kind of your impact in the world and like why you exist, and like you're having a little bit more of this, more thoughtful, because like, I mean, up until then you're kind of just like, you're running and gunning. Like you are building businesses, you are raising kids, you're just trying to like be in the right place at the right time, on time. Like you're just trying to like survive life to a certain degree. And then you get to this place in midlife where you kind of just, it does not slow down, but there is a different there's a different cadence to it where you have time to wonder, I think. And I think you do, because of these things that maybe are aging or perimenopause or both, you start to wrestle with the finite nature of life, and the fact that like we really do, midlife isn't a math term, I mean, like there's a reason we call it that, because it's like, I'm halfway through here.
Yeah.
if we're lucky, if we keep living healthily. And so, I don't know. I can't remember what your original question was, but I think it's perimenopause.
Matt usually
but
just
it's
wants to bring it back
accelerated.
to our own mortality. And
Yeah, I do
fear
like
of
to talk
death.
about death.
And just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's how he copes with it. As he talks about it.
Just keep scratching that itch. And certainly, I didn't mean to suggest that like, hey, is some of this actually just aging? Like, really, what I mean is like a lot of the things that we think about when we think about aging suddenly happen in this very concentrated, very like you said, it's like feels like it's overnight. And so, is there?
You just think you have more time. You think you have more time. You think that's the
Yeah.
stuff that happens to people in their 60s.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I mean, like 45 is not old. I mean, that's not old. I mean, when we were kids, we thought that sounded old, but I just don't see it that way at all anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not stuff I should be dealing with. I'm sure you guys have had that too, where you're like, all of a sudden, like you go to stand up and you actually have to put your hand on your knee a little bit, and you're like, what the? No,
Yeah.
I bounce up. Like, what?
Yeah.
What's that hand on the knee business? Like these little like micro aging moments. And so I think it's just the accelerated nature of it all at one time. And you emotionally can't. It'd be one thing if you were just having physical like symptoms that I could agree with you on, could also be attributed to aging. But it's the like a mental and emotional happening at the same time that just really does a number on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I think we solved it.
I think we fixed it. Yeah. We got it.
It's all about awareness.
It's
just knowing.
The more
helps.
you know.
And then do your own research.
And then do your own, golly. Well, I just want to say, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this because, like, I mean, we said at the beginning, it's like not necessarily the most comfortable thing to talk about, but because of that, it's harder on people. So thanks for doing it with, humor and for putting up with all our bullshit.
My
Much
pleasure.
appreciated. Yeah. We'll talk to you. Hey, you gonna come back? You gonna come back and talk to us again?
Sure, absolutely, but not if we keep doing the beach ball thing.
Yeah, no, yeah. We'll never discuss that again. That's dead to us. Bye.
This episode of Milkless is brought to you by Viola Archer in the case of the Purple Martin. Thank you. Bye.